We have breaking news to top the bottom of the hour this morning. A Calgary-based Encana has announced it is moving its corporate structure to the United States, renaming the company from Encana to Ovintiv. The announcement out just this morning still needs shareholder, stock exchange, and court approval. That is expected to happen in early 2020. No indication just yet of them moving their head office from Calgary. Joining us now to help us put this into some perspective is Calgary's Tim Pickering, the president of Auspice Capital Partners. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us. I just want your initial reaction to the news this morning.
Well, it's obviously somewhat surprised and disappointed, but I think we're going to see more of this, and I think we have to get used to this type of decision being made by our energy companies.
Yeah, what does this signal then for the industry in Alberta and in Canada, really?
Well, I think it signals, especially for public energy companies, that the energy policies in Canada, the challenges we've had in Alberta, that companies are struggling to get foreign capital invested in the companies. This capital is extremely important from an investment perspective. This is U.S. mutual funds, ETFs, energy index funds that hold energy companies, and they've really abandoned Canada in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and companies are looking for ways to again attract that type of capital from an investment perspective and overall, and so their hands have been forced, and what it tells you is that energy policy in Canada is has really let us down.
Encana is a big one. It's been a mainstay with its head office here in Calgary for 2 decades. Are other energy companies looking at this going, oh, what now?
I guarantee you that other companies are looking at this and taking note. We've heard lots of rumblings about this, and I think now you're seeing a major, a real stalwart of the energy industry making this decision, and I'm confident you're going to see others follow. I mean, and it's as simple as we see different jurisdictions in the U.S. You get in your car and you hear about just different jurisdictions advertising, encouraging movement of not only people but companies to the U.S. And if the business is in the U.S., then the companies are going to really struggle to remain domiciled in Canada.
And just one more for you. What do you make of the name change?
I hope the company didn't pay much for that name change. I'm not a big fan.
Okay, fair enough. Do you think it's trying to break stride from the Canadian branding, or do you think this is just a business?
Yeah. Joking aside, we've seen this time and time again. TransCanada did it, and they're getting rid of Canada from the name. It's heartbreaking in a way. I made a decision in my career to come back to Canada from Texas and start my company and raise my family. But you can see the challenges we all have by making those decisions.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Tim Pickering from Auspice Capital Advisors this morning. Thanks for taking the time.
You bet.
And this is where we're going to bring in Danielle Smith from Global News Radio 770 CHQR for her take on this story. Good morning, Danielle.
Good morning. Isn't it something what you just said there as well, how the Canadian brand in oil and gas is toxic? Ovintiv doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, so I kind of agree with him about the name change. But what a terrible blow for the energy sector.
And Canada too. This is a big blow, Danielle.
It's really a big blow. I'm going to talk with Dave Yeager today just to understand how big a blow it is. I mean, there is no more Canadian company than Encana. It derived originally from the Canadian Pacific Oil and Gas Company when Canadian Pacific was being built across the country to unite our country. One of the things they got was land grants and mineral grants, and they spun it off into an energy company, which later merged with the Alberta Energy Company after in the 90s, and it became one of the most important, principally gas producers, because then they spun off Cenovus as well. And so when you look at this company, you really can't find one with deeper Canadian roots. And now there is no margin in having Canada in your brand. There's no additional benefit that comes from being Canadian. It's actually seen as a disadvantage. If we can't attract capital, they're going to have to move to the place where the capital is to be able to invest. And I think this is important to remember. It's not like they're changing or moving or downsizing because there isn't a customer for their products is that they can't find capital here. And so they're going to a place where investors do want to invest, where there is a vibrant market, where there's support of governments to get the product to market. This is, I think, another indication. We had the 200 layoffs from Husky right after the election. We have this move right after the election. This is an indictment of Justin Trudeau's policies. You cannot have a federal government that passes legislation to prevent pipelines from being built, to prevent exports of products from tankers off the western coast, that is openly hostile and talks about phasing out the oil sands, and think that people are going to want to continue investing here. So this is completely laid at the feet of Justin Trudeau, and what I fear is that we will see more of it.
Certainly this story not going away anytime.
Good afternoon, good evening actually, YouTube and my fellow Canadians. It's with a heavy heart that I watch as Encana essentially moves away from Canada, changing its name to Inventive. This is truly a sad day for Canadians, but it is a reality that I'm beginning to see more and more. Companies that are just tired of holding out for the federal government to get their act together, but not exactly tired out. They must be exasperated watching the U.S. essentially thrive and grow and increase jobs and so on, while we in Canada sit essentially with our thumb, just no movement, no prosperity, no progression forward, only loss after loss after loss. We have no success that I can speak of here in energy. And Canada literally translated Energy of Canada. But they want to distance themselves from the name, and put Canada behind them essentially, and go somewhere where they're appreciated, where they can make business, where they're not going to face 1,000 obstacles to try to put something simple in the ground, or take things out of the ground to produce for their clients, their customers. For me, I feel deeply angered and deeply saddened by this new movement that's happening. Essentially, I can say environmental radicals that have infiltrated our country have made this reality for us. And I'm so tired of this agenda being pushed forward while Canadians are losing their jobs, while companies have no choice but to fire Canadian employees because of this government's nonsense and belief in a climate change religion. I'm so tired of hearing about it. This is a failure of Justin Trudeau's policy. This is a failure of the Canadian public to put the proper leaders who are responsible in power. But, the West didn't appoint them. And I have to say, I am more and more and more in favor of a separation, of taxation, but also a separation in business. I think that this cannot keep continuing on this path that Justin Trudeau has put us on. We are on the wrong path. We don't have prosperity at this moment. We don't have the necessary to look after our business infrastructure and keep our country in good shape, on the right course. My fellow Canadians, I urge you, this is a very historical moment in our time. The question about whether the integrity of our country is able to hold together, or if we are so divided. There's the Confederation is still in existence, but not anymore a reality. I wonder about that question. I pose that question to you. Do you still think that Canada should remain together? I look at everything, the policies put forward, and I want to try to stay united, but at a certain point, the reality is hitting, and people are losing their jobs, and for no other reason than nonsense. Why should we endorse this nonsense? Why should we support it? Political leaders blatantly saying, no, we don't want pipelines, we don't want oil energy, we want the phasing out of the oil sands. You can't talk like that and expect the support of people whose livelihood is going to depend on those resources. I can't believe how stupid, how divisive that message that they offer to the public. This movement of environmental climate change radicalism is thriving in this country, and it's killing it. Absolutely killing it. Why should we stay together on this course this government put together? All of the West essentially have voted against him. He has no representation here. And still, now the companies are running scared. They say, oh, there's no hope. We have to get out of here. And I don't blame them. As far as I'm concerned, Trump is creating an environment for them that is extremely favorable, and they should go where they are appreciated, where they can make business. And I pity those who lost their jobs, that the Husky fire laying off 200 workers, and now the headquarters and so on. I don't know if they'll remain in Calgary here in Canada. I expect that there will be mass layoffs, and I hope that those workers will follow those jobs. But I think it may not be possible. I don't know. But I am deeply embarrassed, and I am deeply ashamed of what Canada is becoming. And I feel more and more sympathetic to separation and joining with the States. I tell you, it's a stone on my heart that as a Canadian, we can't even pull ourselves together enough that we can maintain business. Whether you'll admit it or not, the energy sector is the lifeblood of this country. And if it's one, it's not the only one, but it is the most important one. No matter what anybody says, no matter what anybody thinks. The life's blood of this country, the source of technology and so on, and our great progress came from oil. Let us not forget it. So good evening to you. The future does not look good from where I stand. Thank you very much for your attention. Good night.